Well, I just want to welcome everyone. Thank you very much, Cody, for that introduction. That was beautiful. Fellow Toastmasters and distinguished guests, I would like to welcome everyone to our Hilltoppers meeting this evening, Monday night, 6:45 to 7:45. So tonight will be a very eventful night. We have some really nice speeches planned for everyone. So please give everyone your full attention, as they will be working very hard to make sure that you are entertained for this evening. So, my name is John Yuri. Moving along, I would like to start off by introducing our first speaker. Our first speech tonight will be by Ren Bartlett. Our second speech will be by David Monroe. We also have a general evaluator, which will be Justin Kish. And also our first evaluator, Lawrence Crofton.
No, I misplaced mine or
Cody
got
Busser.
lost.
Our timer this evening will be Mickey Seltzer. Is it Seltzer?
Seltzer.
Seltzer, sorry. And our grammarian will be my wife, Christine Yuri. Our general evaluator this evening will also be Justin Gish. So with that being said, let's go over our timers report, what they will be entailed with Mickey, please.
Okay, good evening, fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, Ms. Carey. Essentially what a timer does, I just monitor, keep time and record it and present the times at the end of the meeting.
All right, would you please explain what these colors
Oh, I'm
symbolize?
sorry. Okay, let's see, green means that, well, I'm sorry, the bone color means that you're halfway through. Is that correct?
Well,
Halfway.
each speech will be a little bit different, so the tabletop.
Yeah, it depends, yeah. So essentially, when you've reached your minimum time, you're green. And when you've gone halfway through, we're bone color. And then once you've already exceeded, it's this. Am I correct?
Yes.
Essentially.
You do get 30 seconds on each side, the
Correct.
front side and also the back side, so that's not a problem if you do go a little bit under, a little bit over. So thank you for that, Mickey. We also have our grammarian, which is my wife, Christine. Would you like to explain what the grammarian does? Also the word of the day, please.
Sure, the word of the day is banal. It is devoid of freshness or originality. Not everything works. For example, Rockstar is a pretty banal song. He struts his banal, cliched image and sets out to alter its course according to his inner world. Banal lyrics with meaning and worth is another essential weapon in a jazz singer's armory. I'll put that up.
Thank you, Christine. We'll set that up here.
And then I will also be counting the filler words on things like that. I'll be counting them and writing them down. And I will go over them at the end of the meeting and tell everybody how well they did and how bad they did. That's pretty much it, right?
Thank you, Christine.
Not blue.
Well, let's hope this meeting is not banal, okay? Because we always have a good time here. Let's keep that moving. All right, so with that being said, I'd like to introduce our first speaker this evening. Our first speaker is going to be Ren Bartlett. He's been with our Toastmasters group for a couple months now, and he's done a great job at moving forward with his speeches. So if we could, let's welcome him for his speech, Eliminating Obscurity.
Hello, Toastmasters, honored guests. Tonight I want to start with the story of John. John's a good guy. He went to high school. He fell in love with his sweetheart. He married her. He went to work in a company called Bonnet. Maybe you know that. Every week he matched his 401k out, maxed it out, moved on. 40 years later, he retires. He said, what am I going to do with this retirement money? I got $1 million here, whatever, however much you have. He says, well, I have a love of coffee. I'm going to open up a coffee shop. So he creates a business plan. He goes through all the ins and outs, buys the sign, secures the property, perfect location, so he thinks. He opens shop. And he had the impression, you build it, they will come. He had the best product. He sourced the best coffee beans. He really cared. It took time, and there was a lot of love that went into his coffee. But what John didn't take into account is his marketing strategy. He didn't engage with the tools that would help him reach the masses. His granddaughter comes to him one day and says, Grandpa, you need to get on Facebook. Everybody's on Facebook. He didn't want to adopt Facebook. It scared him. He was intimidated by it. He thought perhaps it was just for the kids, posting silly cat pics. So he ignored it. Time went on. He had a few regulars that come in and come out. People loved his coffee, but he just couldn't seem to hit his stride. people really didn't, he faced the biggest problem that all business owners face, obscurity. Did you know that 61% of small businesses fail within the first 2 years? Now, I made that number up, but it sounded really good, right? But it's true, a high percentage of small businesses go under. And the number one reason isn't for bad employees or bad service or this or that. It's because they are obscure in the marketplace. Nobody knows who they are to buy their great product. So it's sad for John that he put his entire retirement into this business, had a great product, a great business plan, but because he wouldn't adopt a new technology to reach the marketplace, to let them know about his product, he faltered from obscurity. So today I want to talk about some of the ways that he could have benefited from using the social media, the Facebook. It's a tool. Never before has the small business owner been able to have the same voice as the large corporation. Never before have we been able to go into the marketplace and stand up and be seen, be heard, be able to create content how we want to create it. Now, previously we could take out a ad in a magazine, or we could go and buy television spots on TBS or ESPN or the local news, but we were kind of compartmentalized in the message that they wanted us to send out, or maybe we were handcuffed by a particular budget. I know the minimum spend for a TV ad with Fox 10, they don't want to touch you unless you have $1,000. Well, that could be a lot of money for a small business owner that's strapped for capital and not able to put that out. And again, if you can't commit to that for a long amount of time, it's not going to be very effective. Okay? So what we want to talk about today are what John could have done using tools like social media, Instagram, Snapchat to eliminate obscurity, build a tribe around his brand. Coffee's a hot topic in John's day. He could have published content that really drew people in. That way they could enjoy and savor that hot cup of coffee, right? So there's 3 ways that I want to talk to you today about ways that you can engage people on content. That you can build a tribe around your product, service, or brand. And the first way is you're going to have to provide value. So how could have John provided value? Well, in many ways I think he could have provided value by talking about the different beans that he selected. How did he go through that selection process? How are the beans harvested? How are they manufactured? How are they distributed? I'm not sure you manufacture coffee beans, but perhaps you grow them, right? So by doing that, people would know the care that went into him selecting his beans or what particular roast. Then again, eliminating obscurity and letting them know that he's right there and he's a good local coffee shop. Another good way to build a community around your brand is to entertain somebody. So if you're not educating them, let's entertain them. What could he have done on his social media channels to entertain people? Well, he could have showed the ins and outs of a coffee shop, what it goes into making coffee, what happens when you spill coffee on a show. It really doesn't matter. And I think what people fail to understand is when you have these social media channels, you have your own Fox, you have your own TBS. You can create and put out anything that you want to do. We have the opportunity to resonate with our customers. Again, coffee, there's such a community built around coffee. We're having this meeting in a coffee shop. If you go downstairs, it's packed with patrons who love coffee. What kind of coffee do you get every week?
Medium blend black.
It's pretty specific. He has a passion for coffee. So what if John went and talked about how a medium blend black was made? What is a medium blend black? I don't know. But if he would have entertained me or educated me with what goes into a medium blend black, that could have piqued my curiosity. Perhaps I would come into his establishment and enjoy a cup of coffee. Whereas the opposite, before it's obscure. I have no idea what medium blend black is. It's a great opportunity to be educated there. So in conclusion, I want people to understand that social media is not just a trend. It's not just something that kids are going to play on. It is a powerful business tool that we can use to leverage ourselves, just as the big corporations leverage themselves with these big budgets. you can take this opportunity to create content around a product or service, show your passion, build a tribe, build a community, educate, entertain, provide value to people in a way that smaller budget, smaller business owners have never been able to do before. So take that opportunity, if you're a business owner, if you're an entrepreneur, and educate yourself on these platforms and understand how you can use them to better your business and eliminate obscurity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir. Well, I would just like to say thank you once again. That was a great speech. As a marketing manager for a major retailer, household, so I would like to say thank you very much. I really enjoyed that speech. I did learn a lot, Ren. Thank you very much. And if you would, I'd like to speak to you for a few minutes afterwards about some things that we can maybe help each other on. So that's great. So with that being said, I'd like to introduce our second speaker, which is going to be David Monroe. David Monroe has been with Toastmasters for a couple of years now, if I'm correct. A little bit intermediately here and there. He was part of the downtown group, but now he's with us at Hilltoppers. So please allow us to introduce David and give us your full attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, do you know your numbers? How many people here are in sales? I know Ren is, I know John is. So 4 of you. That's great. John, how many calls do you need to make every single day in order to reach your financial goals?
Millions?
So you don't know your numbers. That's okay. I'm going to educate you on that. Yori, do you know your numbers?
No.
Again, that's okay. Ren, I know you know how many calls you need to make each and every single day in order to meet your financial goals.
52.
52, that's a big number. That's a big number. You must have a big financial goal. Here's the point. By knowing your numbers, you can reach your financial goals no matter what you're selling. If you know what your financial goal is, and you know what your average sale price is for whatever product or service it is that you deliver, and you have a split, or maybe you get a percentage. In my industry, we have a percentage and a split. We got to go way down. But if you know what those are, you can determine how many sales or closings you need in order to make that financial goal. And we do this by using what are called ratios. You have your calls to contact ratio, and that's the decision maker, it's not the gatekeeper. You have your contact to appointment ratio. In my industry, in real estate, you have your appointment to contract ratio, meaning either I'm signing a contract with a buyer on the buy side or I'm signing a listing contract with the seller. And then you have your contract to closing ratio. In some industries, you just have your appointment to closing ratio. And in even other industries in telemarketing, you have your call to contact to closing ratio, because they don't ever leave the building. They do their sales calls right there. Knowing those numbers, you can determine how many calls you make each day to meet that financial goal. And we do that by figuring it out backwards. So for me, my ratios in real estate, my calls to contacts, about 20%. Contacts to appointments is 10%. From appointments to contracts, whether it's a listing contract, whether it's a buyer signing a contract to go out and show them properties or her, is 75%, meaning if I get in front of them face to face, I'm going to close them 75% of the time on a contract. And then once I have a contract, now this is not a contract to purchase the property. This is a contract, again, with the seller or with the buyer. From contract to closing ratio, I'm at 90%. So I'll close 90% of the time. So knowing those numbers, putting them in reverse, if let's say my sales goal is $250,000. Now it's much higher than that, but let's say it was $250,000. And I know I need to close this amount of sales in order to reach this goal. Well, if my contract to closing ratio is 90%, then I just divide that number by 0.9. Well, now I can take my contract ratio from appointments to contract and say, okay, well, if I know I got to have this many contracts, I divide that number by 75, 0.75, because 75% is my appointment to contract ratio. And then if I know how many appointments I need to make, then I take my contact to appointment ratio, which in my case is 0.1 or 10%. That will tell me how many calls or how many contacts I need to reach. And then the last one is divided again by 0.2 because my calls to contact ratio was 20%. So now I know in order to reach this financial goal, I got to close this many sales, attend this many, or have this many contracts, attend this many meetings, reach this many decision makers, and make this many calls. For me, that's on an annual basis. So I then take that annual number and divide it by 50. Nobody in here is going to work 52 weeks a year. It's impossible. You're going to get sick. You're going to have vacation time. Your significant other is going to tell you to take a week off. You're going to have personal time. Some people will even go all the way down to 48 weeks in a year. I like to use 50. Divide that total number by 50, and then again by 5 because there's 5 days in a week. Now I've got my daily call number in order to reach my annual goal. If you track your numbers quarterly, then instead of dividing that number, that call number by 50, you divide it by 13. There's 52 weeks in a year, 4 quarters, 13 weeks a quarter. Divide it again by 5, again you've got your daily call volume. If you track it monthly, just divide it by 20. We average about 20 days in a month for our work schedule. Again, by knowing these numbers, you will be able to sell anything no matter what industry you're in. Here's the beauty of it. If I want this number to be higher and my daily call number is 20, what do I have to do? Rent. If I want this number to be higher, I just make more calls. That's exactly right. If I'm doing 52 calls a day and I can barely go to the bathroom during the day because I'm making so many calls and this number is looking a little low, we can also adjust our average sales number if you're an industry that allows you to do that. In my industry, I can do that. I believe in Ren's industry, he can do that. But the easiest way to do it is just adjust that call volume. My greatest mentor, Jim Rohn, said it best. Sales is the easiest, lowest paying job you'll ever have. And it's the hardest, highest paying job you'll ever have. Thank you, Mr. Toast.
David, that was very interesting, very knowledge-filled. I do appreciate that. We're going to move on to our table topics portion of our meeting this evening. And our topic master, Yu Ying, is not here this evening.
I'll fill in.
So, Ren, if you'd like to come up and maybe give us some topics, we'd really appreciate that. You always
Well,
have good
in
topics.
here.
Just so you know, he's been saving these for about 2 months. Just wait for somebody not to show up. Thank you.
You're welcome. Fellow Toastmaster, honored guests, table topics. I'm going to ask for volunteers, and then I'm going to give you something to expound upon.
We don't know what that is, but it'll be something.
Who's the volunteer? Lawrence. Lawrence, it's Saturday. You wake up and you go to your pickle garden. Peter Piper pecked a pickle, pickled peppers. How many pickled peppers did Peter Piper pick?
My fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, it's really quite interesting that you ask me about pickled peppers, because I do pickling.
Anna?
I do pickling. I do fermented pickling, not vinegar pickling. And so there may be a little bit of difference there, but none of them are really very banal in their activities. But pickles are a wonderful thing, because just think about the lowly cucumber or the lowly pepper. Just kind of a bland, flavorless little thing, but then with just a little bit of effort, a little bit of spices, and a little bit of time just to sit and relax in a nice, comfortable, spiced bath. Everybody likes to have a nice bath with fragrance and whatever. Well, you put your cucumbers or your pickles in there, and I'll tell you what, folks, in a very short time, you would have a whole peck of pickled peppers. Mr. Toastmaster.
Next volunteer. You got it? You're the jar that Lawrence pecks his pickles in. You don't like your pickles in his jar, and his jar don't like your pickles in his... Sorry. You don't like his pickles in your jar, and his jar don't like his pickles in there either. Tell us why. I got that right.
Good evening, everyone. Spent a lot of time in Lawrence's cabinet, and I like it in there. It's dark. Preferably not full of pickles. They tend to have a strong odor to them. I'd rather hold other things than a pickle. I've never been fond of pickles myself, so Lauren's decision to fill me with pickles every month really disturbs me. If Lawrence could find something other than pickles to put in the jars, that'd make me very happy. That's a good one. Thank you.
Next volunteer. David. You're the cabinet that Lawrence stocks the jars of pickles in. Tell us about that.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence, get these pickled peppers out of my cabinet. I can't stand this smell one more day. Do you hear me, sir? No?
But they're good pickles.
I'm gonna have to find a leak in this house somewhere so that water will drip on the base of my cabinet so that pickled jar will just fall right through the bottom of it. Have you ever had to deal with such a smell for such a long period of time, Mr. Lawrence?
I like it.
Do you not have any respect, man? Please, for the love of everything on this earth, get this jar out of my cabinet. I can't be any more clear, sir. Can I get your agreement that you will at least take the jar out for a period of a short time each day? Can we at least do that?
Okay.
If we can do that, I think that I cannot look for a leak and have to destroy the bottom of my cabinet, making the jar fall through and breaking and hurting the poor countertop below. God forbid that the countertop have to suffer what I suffered through. Thank you.
Next volunteer. Cody. You're a shoe. You hate socks. Tell us why.
It's my lucky day. I'm now a shoe. A very fine Italian leather shoe imported from Italy. And my owner doesn't get to experience my fine leather qualities. I mean, I was made with time and effort because I have this sock in the way. Really irks me that I'm such a fine piece of Italian leather and my owner cannot experience the quality of the grain that I am. Also, the thing I don't like about socks is the fact that they get lint everywhere. So I was clean when I came off the assembly line, and now I'm covered in this sock lint, and it's really annoying, and I just don't like socks.
So we got 4 minutes. Next volunteer.
I enjoy that so much. I love it.
All right. You are Cody's pretend girlfriend. Please tell us why you wish you would wear socks.
Fellow Toastmasters and distinguished guests, I have the honor tonight of being Cody's pretend girlfriend, which isn't awkward at all. But as his pretend girlfriend, I am appalled that Cody refuses to wear socks. It is atrocious. And the reasons behind Cody's supposed sock aversion don't stand up to examination. First of all, this supposed Italian leather shoe is not really from Italy. It's from Birmingham. And the fine craftsmanship is marred by many holes, which require additional layers in order to be useful. And as his pretend girlfriend, I would hope that he would be mindful of certain societal regulations that encourage the wearing of socks. And I hope that by continually buying socks and placing them in his dresser, he'll continue or consider wearing them in the future. Thank you.
That concludes our table topic portion this evening. Turn it back over to Mr. President-elect. Not elect, Toastmaster.
Thank you. Trent, always entertaining. Everyone, thank you for your speeches and your quick thinking. So with that being said, I'd like to move on to Justin Gish. He'll be our general evaluator this evening. I'll be going over the, I'm sorry, it's first evaluator.
No, you
General-
the general evaluation.
So general evaluator will be first, Justin Gish, if you want to come up and give us your evaluation.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Justin.
So our first speaker was Ren, and Lawrence is going to be providing the evaluation for Ren's speech.
Before I start the evaluation, because of our guest, I would like to just make a short statement. When we do speeches, we are trying to improve our abilities. So a great part of that is being able to be evaluated in what we do. Now, the norm in Toastmasters is what we call a sandwich evaluation. You give them a presentation of something good they did, you tell them what they can improve, and you finish up with something they did that you like. Now, also, when you get into Toastmasters, you'll get a competent communicator book. And then when you complete that, you get other advanced training manuals. And in all of these, they have a section at the end of each speech where you can fill out what the goals of that particular speech are. And that's what the evaluator does. So that's what I'm going to be doing now.
And this concludes our education portion for this evening.
For this moment. I don't know if it's for the whole evening, but it's for this moment. Okay, I actually did not get the name of the speech, but it is speech number 4 in the Competent Communicator on how to say it. So a lot of the evaluation is on the different wording and the different way that he presented his speech. So it says, was the speech topic appropriate? I think so. Did the speaker use simple, short, and clear words? I believe he did. Did the speaker use vivid descriptions, descriptive words, and create mental images? I think to some extent he could have improved on that, but he did do that, and so that was good also. Did the speaker use words that had more than one meaning or were inaccurate? I do not think so. I think that was quite good, that everything he used seemed to fit appropriately with what he was trying to convey. Did the speaker use rhetorical devices to enhance his or her ideas? A little bit of that he did, so I gave him good on that also. Did he avoid jargon and unnecessary words? I think he did that. Did he use proper grammar and pronunciation? This is the one place that I think he could improve quite a bit. I noticed that the dialect that he is using has a tendency to shorten words. They don't always end clearly. So a lot of times he might not pronounce the last letter completely when he was talking. There were a number of words, and I noticed specifically when words ended with T that he did not enunciate the T very well. So that's something that you might want to look into in future speeches. Okay, did he use proper grammar? I think so. Was the speech purpose clear? Absolutely. And was it effective? And I think it was effectively organized. He went through, he had a good opening, he gave a good body of the speech, and he closed also. Again, what could he do to become more effective as a speaker? I think also he could just slow down just a hair. And that there could be many reasons why. I'm from New York, and everything is done in a New York minute. So that's why I speak too quickly, and I had to learn to slow down. But anyways, what did I like? I liked how he engages the audience, how he tries to bring us into his speech and tries to project himself in a way that makes us all feel like we could be a part of what he is speaking about. Mr. Evaluator.
Lawrence. Our second speaker was David Monroe, and Cody is going to provide evaluation of that speech.
So David is on speech number 5 from the Competent Communicator, and the goal of this speech was to improve and focus on body language. So the name of the speech was Know Your Numbers. I'm going to start with the criteria. So topic selection, did it facilitate body language? I thought so, because he had a lot of numbers and high or lower, and he did really well kind of making the numbers come to life, which is tough to do when you have a very technical speech like his. Was he prepared? Yes. The speech flowed very well. He knew his topics, flowed, didn't get lost. So definitely prepared, definitely studied, didn't use notes. Manner, confident and enthusiastic, yes, definitely. Good posture, balanced, moved away from the podium so he wasn't leaning over, stood up straight, which was good. Gestures, yeah, I really like the gestures on the speech. They were very natural. And so, when you talk about, maybe a high goal, we'd use this, or increments. He used gestures like that, pointed to the audience in the beginning to engage the audience. Did very well with eye contact, looked at everyone, was talking to each member of the audience, didn't look off into space, which is good. Had good facial expressions. It said animated, friendly, or genuine. Maybe satisfactory in this, but it's kind of a technical, serious topic, so I don't know if animated facial expressions would be appropriate for it, but it may be some pauses with maybe could improve a little bit. Speech purpose, yes, it was clear, definitely understood what you were trying to convey, and the organization, it was clear, but with the numbers, it's a little tough to follow, at least for me. So I know this wasn't the purpose of speech, it was more bilanguage, but a chart maybe could have helped a little bit just to kind of see the numbers you're talking about. I don't think it would have taken away from the speech. It would kind of, for me, helped follow a little better along. So what could the speaker have done differently to make the speech more effective? I think starting right away with the question instead of doing, hey, welcome, or good afternoon, fellow Toastmasters, get right into it, kind of maybe help a little bit, just get us right on our toes. And the chart that I mentioned, just to go over the numbers on a more technical speech could have helped, at least for me. What did I like about the presentation? I thought you really nailed the topic of body language. Every hand gesture had a point and a purpose. You weren't just kind of randomly moving your arms around. And I thought you really nailed the body language, also stepping away from the podium to kind of emphasize your hand movements and you weren't hiding back behind it. And yeah, so I really think that the purpose of speech, body language, was encapsulated by our speech, and good job, David. Thank you.
Cody? So we'll move on with the rest of the evaluations. Let's move to the timer's report by Nikki Seltzer, please.
Okay, so I do that computer, correct?
Yes.
Okay, let's see, Ren, his speech was 7 minutes, 5 seconds. David, your speech was exactly 7 minutes. Table topics, Lawrence, you came in at 1 minute, 23 seconds. Yannick, you did 35 seconds. David, again, on table topics, 1 minute, 37 seconds. Cody, right at 1 minute. And Rachel did 1 minute, 26 seconds. Concerning the evaluations, Lawrence was at 3 minutes, 29 seconds, and Cody came in at 2 minutes, 59 seconds.
Okay, thank you, Mickey. So we'll move to the grammarian report by Christine.
All right, so I have Yannick, one, Justin, one so. Cody has 3 so's and 3 ands. Lawrence was 5 uhs, 3 so's, and 2 buts. Rachel was 4 uhs, 2 so's, 1 2 ands, and 1 but. Ren was 2 so's and 2 uhs. And John was 5 uhs, 2 so's, and 2 ums. And he used the word of the day, and so did Lawrence. Okay.
See any grammar problems you want to point out, or?
No, I'm horrible at grammar. So I think it all turned out really great.
Great. So a general evaluation of the meeting. One thing that happened at the last minute here is Thomas was unable to make the meeting, and Thomas is our president and does a good job introducing things, so that can throw things and maybe a little bit on a back step if he's not there to kick that off. But Cody jumped in and took leadership and made sure that the meeting started reasonably on time. We were about 3 minutes late. Also, Yu Wing, who was supposed to handle the table topics master role, her role wasn't filled, and Ren jumped in and filled that part of the role, and the meeting just cruised right through, so that was fantastic. Ren provided a great speech on social media. I like how you described companies that aren't promoting themselves on social media as obscure. Using the term obscurity, that's a great way to describe that. That really drives that home and the importance of marketing. David did a great speech on knowing your numbers and the sales, and I think so many salespeople don't apply that kind of methodology to the sales approach. And so many professions like that can be turned into a numbers game. And it's not all about the numbers, but it gives you an indication of where you need to be. So I am right in line with what you're talking about there. Lawrence's evaluation of Ren's speech was great. He provided some good feedback and enunciation and speech structure. And Lawrence is a great evaluator, got a lot of good experience there and provided a very thorough evaluation. Cody did a great evaluation of David's speech. It's clear that Cody paid very close attention to the speech and was well prepared for the presentation, and a lot of detail and a lot of good suggestions to David. So with that, overall, very good meeting, and I'll turn the podium back over to the Toastmaster.
Okay, with that being said, I'd like to thank everyone. I'd like to welcome Mickey to the podium. She's going to go over our educational overview for this evening, and we look forward to hearing you, Mickey.
Thank you. Well, I will, good evening, fellow Toastmasters and honored guest, Miss Carrie.
Yes.
I wanted to cover, and it's something I'm pulling directly from the Toastmasters International website, and it's concerning filler words. The like, how do I stop, and ah. That's an area of growth, an area of opportunity, I think, for every public speaker. And so the title of this speech is the use of science of disfluencies and techniques to clean up your speech. And the author of this speech is Lisa B. Marshall. And to define disfluencies is an academic term used to describe a speaker's hesitations, repeats, or expressions. And if you've ever been singled out by an odd counter with the Toastmasters, it might help you to know that our spontaneous speech is naturally disinfluent, as natural as peas in a pod, as this article says. In fact, a conservative estimate for the rate of vocalized disinfluencies is 6 words per 100. So essentially that means if you speak at a typical rate of we speak about 150 words per minute, you should expect to say 9 filler words in just a 1 minute speech. So what her recommendations are to eliminate that, some tips to eliminate filler words. First, she said replace verbalized pauses with silence. So instead of saying or she said just to be silent. And the first step in replacing those ahs and ums with the silence is to identify them in yourself and others. And so the tool, a way to do that, she said, try recording your speech patterns in various settings, such as a meeting, a work presentation, a speech, or just a casual conversation. And in doing that, it's important to listen and review it at least 5 minutes of recorded speech daily, and you would need to do that for 14 days consecutively to review that. And in doing so, she said that will ultimately, the goal is to recognize when you are about to utter an expression of hesitation or a filler word, if you will. The second tip is also important to begin noticing which particular situations are troublesome for you. Generally for me, and I know Christy pointed out for me, when I'm getting to the end of my speech, I generally speed up a little bit because I'm visualizing my end, and so I'm kind of rambling on through. So I'm trying to visualize just slowing down so I don't speed up. The third tip, remind yourself that during the speech, again, no one is going to interrupt you, so you don't have to signal that you have more to say. The fourth tip, next use, they say, and the research is showing according to this article, use more gestures. And David spoke about body language, and researchers are saying they've not identified exactly why, but fewer gestures equate to more disfluency. So the less you use your hands, the more you're using filler words is what they're saying. So that's what the research is saying. Let's see, one more tip. Another helpful technique is they say use shorter sentences, essentially. And lastly, if you want to see a big difference, slow down. I've already alluded to that. Just slow down, and they say breathe from your diaphragm, and this is essentially a learned practice. You have to practice. It's not something that comes naturally for us. So they say just take a breather and slow down. And as I conclude, remember, hesitations in our speech are not just fillers. They have purpose and meaning. Thank you.
great educational overview, Mickey. I learned quite a bit myself. I hope everyone else did as well. With that being said, I'd like to move on to Heather. She's going to go over our awards, thanks, guest comments.
Heather is not here tonight either.
Okay. As far as I know, we don't have any awards this evening.
No.
Unless there's something else somebody would like to. And with that being said, Ying Ying is not here, so we would like to take over the agenda for next week. Possibly do some assigning or taking volunteers for the next job assignments.
Has anybody got something they want to do next week?
I'll do table topics.
I'll be Toastmaster.
I'll do timer. I haven't done timer
I can do a speech.
What's that? You're going to do a speech? Okay. I'm sorry. What?
yet. Christine.
Christine.
Yeah, actually, that's going to be.
Yeah, thank you.
I just don't want to get myself overloaded.
And that's going to be, which one, do you know?
I started over, so it'll be the second one.
Well,
And I-
that'll probably come up. Okay.
And I'll do one as well, and that'll be my second speech.
Speech.
I'll take Toastmaster.
I think David.
I think
said-
David-
Oh, did you already
David
say
did
that?
it.
I'm sorry.
I did it for the first time on Wednesday at their meeting downtown. I didn't have my books with me, so I didn't get credit for it.
Justin, do you want to do grammarian?
Sure.
Does anyone want to do the educational overview? I know that Thomas does a lot, so if we want to just mix it up a little bit. Cody, great.
What else are you missing? Oh, evaluators.
Evaluators, yeah. So we need 2 evaluators for next week, please.
In general.
And a general.
One.
So,
Rachel will be one evaluator.
You want to be GE too? Sure? Okay.
You're a great grammarian.
Well, thank you.
I would volunteer for anything. I don't know if I have a sitter next Monday, so I'm not 100% I'll be here.
Okay. Well, we'll pencil you in as a GE.
Unless I can bring her. I mean, she's not as quiet as that.
Maurice is sitting over there all quiet.
Put a movie on for her.
Put him on the
Okay,
spot.
what else is left?
General?
general and speech 2 evaluator,
Freak
please.
her out.
Speech 2 of it.
Does she?
I'll take general.
Oh, she-
Great.
So we just need speech 2 evaluator, and we should be.
I'll volunteer, and if not, Thomas can back me up.
Yeah, I was
Okay.
gonna say between one of the 2 of them, they'll be here.
Okay.
Okay, good,
I
good.
could always pick some up too.
And, all right, good. And
That's
I'm
for
not going to be
educational
here. so-
overview?
What's that?
Okay, educational
Yes.
overview, okay.
You-
I don't believe we're missing anything, but if anybody has something they'd like to say.
Is everyone familiar with Easy Speak, by the way? Can everyone get into it? You're not able to?
I don't even know.
It's the website for
Oh.
Well, there's Toastmaster International, and Easy Speak's just a supplemental website.
It's the local,
We manage our meetings with, so you can say that you're coming, you can request speeches. So,
and you can do like I did and put your introduction for your speech in there.
I believe that's actually how we print these, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they're
correct?
from,
Okay,
they're
so
from
it
Easy
is,
Speak.
and I haven't bad about it myself, but, you know, it just helps if we have the name of the speech and who's doing it and, you know, kind of a little bit more of the question mark, so it's good to do that, so I will personally get better about that as well.
Now, does the Toastmaster print those out? Were you supposed to print those out tonight?
No, not necessarily.
Thomas, what is it?
I print them out sometimes, and other people print them out, so. But yeah, it's from Easy Speak, you can just go hit print agenda.
So you could print your own.
Yeah, you can print your own.
I think
also if you
Toastmaster
want.
usually is supposed to be bringing those.
I do
think
like
that
the
was all
fact that,
bad.
I guess Thomas or whoever's printing those out is taking care of that stuff, but if we want to, we can do it ourselves.
Yeah,
Does everybody know that
somebody
we-
print them out.
Does everybody know
Print them
that
out
we
for
do
next week.
videotape these meetings? Everybody knows that this is on YouTube?
Yeah. Okay, so I videoed last week's, and I haven't got it off my camera yet, but it will get off there eventually, or I'll give Lawrence my camera and he can figure it out.
Can you, do you have Dropbox?
Yeah, well, so I downloaded it off my camera as an MPEG,
Okay.
and it only came up as an audio file.
Oh, okay.
but I can view it and listen to it in the camera itself.
Okay.
So I know the video's there, I know it recorded it,
Right.
but I'm having a hard time getting it onto the computer. So I may just bring my camera to you and let you figure it out, and you can bring it back to me next week.
Okay, okay. All right.
Lawrence will appreciate that.
Yes,
All
I
right.
will appreciate that.
Yes, yes.
I want that.
I'm sure you do.
One more thing on Easy Speak. Does anyone have trouble logging in on Easy Speak? Well, if you do, any president or vice president can send them a reset code to reset their password, and then you can verify whether their email address is on their account.
Send you a link, Brandon.
I haven't tried it, so I might as well send it to you too. Try something this week.
Y'all don't want me in, man. I want my money back.
One thing I do like about that, I'm not sure if they do that at the other group that you were at downtown, do they videotape them?
Yes.
Okay, good. One thing I do like about that, I've actually gone over and watched it a few times, it's a really good way to self-evaluate yourself. So when you're looking at what you did in your speech, you kind of give yourself some tips and things you may have wanted to work on for next time. I just think it's a great way to, even if you're by yourself, kind of give yourself a self-evaluation. I like to go on there sometimes and just watch them. It also puts him to sleep for some reason, but as well. So, and also, if she misses a meeting, you know, she can see how awesome.
I downloaded all mine and put them together in a compilation, so at the end of the year, I'm gonna go back and look at my progress.
And that's a great idea. I think we have a lot of good things that are coming out of this meeting. You know, I personally feel like I use a lot less filler words. I pay attention to a lot of filler words when I'm speaking to people at, you know, events or working meetings or even just at work. I feel like this event or this group has really helped me a lot and also taught me a lot too. So, if there's nothing else, I'm going to adjourn this meeting, and I'd like to thank everybody for coming out this evening. Maurice, would you like to say anything before we tap the gavel?
Well, I was going to correct you. You could relinquish the lectern back to the acting president.
So let's relinquish back to the acting president, which is going to be Cody this evening. Thank you very much, Cody.
Well, John's concluded the meeting, so I don't have anything else to say. So thank you everyone.